Syd Barrett. He was the brilliant, chaotic, and ultimately tragic founder of Pink Floyd. He was their guiding light, the creative engine that launched them into stardom. But just as quickly as he rose, he vanished. Not just from the band, but it seemed from the world itself. And the story of that disappearance? It all starts with one single, bizarre encounter.
So, picture this. It's 1975. Pink Floyd is now a global phenomenon, and they're deep in a recording session at the legendary Abbey Road Studios. They're working on an album that is, in a lot of ways, a tribute to the friend they lost along the way. And then, a visitor shows up.
He's heavier than they remember. His head and his eyebrows are completely shaved. He's acting strange. And for a long, long time, nobody in the room recognizes him. But when they do, the realization is absolutely devastating. This is the central mystery of Syd Barrett, isn't it? How did the man who literally created Pink Floyd become so lost that his own bandmates couldn't even recognize him? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning.
See, before the breakdown, before the vacant stares, Roger Keith's Syd Barrett, he was the undisputed leader and the creative genius of the band. He was the one with the vision.
Born in Cambridge, Syd's passion for music started young. But a really pivotal moment came when he was just 16, after the tragic death of his father. To help him through the grief, his mother did something pretty remarkable. She encouraged his music by letting his band practice right there in their living room. That small act of support would unknowingly set the stage for rock history. Even the band's name was a stroke of Syd's spontaneous genius. His school friend Roger Waters had asked him to join his band, T-Set. But then they show up to a gig and see another band with the exact same name. So Syd, in a flash of inspiration, just combines the names of two of his favorite bluesmen, Pink Anderson and Floyd Council, and just like that, the Pink Floyd sound was born. Pink Floyd's early success was just meteoric, but the pressure and the whole psychedelic culture of the 60s, it took a profound toll on Syd. His friends and bandmates started to notice a sudden, drastic change. It was as if a switch had just been turned off inside his head. And the change was dramatic. The Syd everyone knew, this joyful, friendly, and extroverted guy, was gone. In his place was a man who was depressed, introverted, and at times completely catatonic. But the most haunting description came from his friends, who said his eyes became vacant, like there was no one home. So what happened? Well, many of his friends pointed to a single event they called the Lost Weekend. Syd disappeared for a few days, and when he came back, he was just never the same. To this day, no one knows for sure what happened during that time, but it marks the moment the light in Syd Barrett really began to fade. With Syd now a deeply troubled and completely unreliable member, the band was faced with an impossible situation. Their meteoric rise was now on a collision course with their founder's catastrophic decline. The breaking point really came during the band's first major U.S. tour. It was meant to be their big break in America. Instead, it became a very public showcase for Syd's unraveling. From the moment he landed, it was clear something was terribly wrong. The meltdown was immediate. He reportedly arrived in LA thinking it was Vegas and then just casually announced he'd forgotten his guitar. On national television, he was a total disaster. During a performance on the conservative Pat Boone show, he just stood there, motionless, refusing to lip sync. Later, on American Bandstand, he gave such bizarre one-word answers that he left the legendary host Dick Clark completely bewildered. But perhaps the most infamous moment came at a concert in Santa Monica. Syd, unhappy with a perm he'd gotten, decided to fix it by emptying an entire jar of Brill cream into his hair. Under the hot stage lights, the cream melted and ran down his face like wax, horrifying the fans in the front row. It was a physical manifestation of his internal meltdown. Back in the UK for a tour with Jimi Hendrix, things got even worse. The band never knew what to expect. Would Syd show up? And if he did, would he even be able to play? Often, he would just stand on stage, guitar hanging from his neck, staring blankly into the crowd. The band was totally backed into a corner. They had to do something. So their solution was to bring in Syd's old friend David Gilmour as a stand-in. The plan was for Gilmour to cover Syd's parts when Syd couldn't or wouldn't play. It seemed like a temporary fix to a truly impossible problem. But there was a complication. David Gilmour wasn't just a competent stand-in. He was a phenomenal guitarist and vocalist. And suddenly, the band could function perfectly, even better, without its founder. Yeah, that temporary solution was about to become permanent. After being pushed out of the band he created, Syd Barrett's life began a long, slow spiral into near total reclusion. The rock star vanished, and Roger Barrett, the man, returned to a life of quiet anonymity. At first, Syd didn't even seem to understand he'd been fired. He'd show up to gigs only to sit in the front row and just glare at David Gilmour. He attempted his solo career, releasing 2 chaotic but brilliant albums, but soon he quit music for good. For a time, he was homeless, before eventually moving back home to Cambridge into his mother's basement. And it was there he rediscovered his first love, painting. For the rest of his life, Syd, or Roger, as he insisted on being called, lived in quiet solitude. He painted on these enormous canvases and tried to live an ordinary life. In 2006, at the age of 60, he passed away, not from his mental health issues or drug use, but from cancer. And this brings us right back to where we started. Abbey Road Studios, 1975. The Mysterious Visitor. The man who was a ghost at his own tribute. Just imagine the shock. It took the band nearly an hour to recognize their old friend, their former leader. When Roger Waters finally realized who it was, he was so shaken by Syd's empty appearance that he just broke down and cried. And here is the unbelievable, heartbreaking irony of it all. The very day Syd Barrett chose to reappear, seemingly at random, was the day Pink Floyd was recording Shine on You Crazy Diamond, their epic 9-part tribute to him. He was the crazy diamond who had inexplicably shown up for his own eulogy. So what really happened to Syd Barrett? Was it the drugs? A latent mental illness that was triggered by the immense pressure of fame? Or was he simply a fragile genius whose brilliant light was just too bright to last? You know, we may never have a definitive answer. And that is why the tragic, beautiful myth of Syd Barrett continues to fascinate us.